Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and welcome to issue number 9 of The Division Weekly. Now, I want to do something a little bit different regarding the fan art focus moving forward. I still plan on occasionally featuring fan art focus that I have selected from the greater world of the interwebs, but what I would like to do on a regular basis is feature screenshots, in-game photography taken by you guys and gals, the viewers, the ones who make sure that every single Monday this isn't just me talking to myself in the deepest and darkest corner of the internet. The Division is a game world, essentially, that is ripe for in-game photography and screenshots. The environmental design is stunning, there is no doubt about that. We've got some amazing lighting and weather effects. There's just a whole lot of awesome opportunities for great in-game photography, whether it's beauty shots, you know, humor, comedy, epic moments. It does not matter. I want you guys to start savoring those moments and then sending them to me so I can feature them on future issues of The Division Weekly. Now, the best way to do that is to take a screenshot on whatever platform you're playing on and then go ahead and make it an Imgur file on the Imgur website. Then share that link with me either directly here on YouTube in the comment section below or over on Twitter at TonyMo034. Now, the great thing about this is, you know, if you went back 10 years ago, chances are very few people had the technology to actually take a screenshot. A lot has changed in the last 10 years, and it's really easy on every platform that the Division is available on to take an instantaneous screenshot and then save it and share it with me somewhere on the internet. Now, if you decide to post an Imgur link down in the comments section below, remember that it will be flagged as spam because that's what YouTube does, but I will see it in my filter. I'll be able to push it through and make sure that it's actually posted, and of course that I also see the image itself. I would love this to become something that actually works. I would love to have to sift through dozens and dozens of entries every single week to pick one or two entries to feature on each episode of The Division Weekly. That would be a wicked amount of fun. So please, guys, get your sort of photographic talents and juices flowing. Head out into the frozen wastes of NYC in The Division and start snapping some in-game photos and send them my way. I've actually used an in-game screen capture of my own for this week's thumbnail, as well as this week's dashboard. Just a bit of epic sunset over the shoulder moment with my paladin build. I thought it was pretty cool, and it turned out all right. You know, I was going to use it actually for the thumbnail for my paladin build video, but it was too bright and it just didn't really blend well with the color of my text in my thumbnail, but it fits perfectly here. Let's move forward, though. Let's get into the big, juicy discussion data for this week, because there's a lot of it. It is very dense. It is very thick. It is like an awful fruitcake. There's not much of it, but there's a lot to talk about regarding each individual piece. And the biggest portion of it all is the patch notes that were just revealed to us today. Brand new patch 1.02, going live on all platforms during the game's maintenance early Tuesday morning. So chances are when you play The Division, come March 22nd, you will be playing the brand new updated version of the game. Now, the patch notes themselves are pretty big. There's a lot of stuff here. We've got a lot of bug fixes as well as a lot of changes to the way that loot is handled, both in the normal game as well as in the Darkzone, and that's all fine and dandy. So I want to highlight a couple things, and then I actually want to have a discussion regarding the changes that are happening in the Darkzone when it comes to rogue status, because this is something a lot of people have had opinions on, and I'd very much like to sort of share my concerns with modifying the Darkzone when it comes to those systems. I do feel that Ubisoft is constantly going to be walking a very fine line with how the rogue system is handled. And while I don't think it's perfect right now, and I understand a lot of people don't care for how harsh the punishment is when dying as a rogue, I think it is a necessary evil that you are still punished rather greatly for dying as a rogue agent. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the modifications to loot drops. Number one, very happy about this. Named enemies will now drop better loot in challenge mode than they would if in hard mode. This just makes sense. Challenge mode is the hardest PvE mission difficulty. Therefore, you should get better loot. It's just how it should be. So really happy to see that being taken care of. They've also finally modified the trained talent, which if you guys didn't realize was actually disabled in game because it was causing the Midas SMG to be a little bit too powerful. So what's happened now is the Midas SMG, whether you have looted it in the past or will loot it in the future, now has its trained talent replaced with the responsive talent, which increases damage when getting closer to the target. The trained talent itself can now only be rolled on shotguns, marksman rifles, and pistols. Its bonus has been reduced from a potential 1% to 5% to a constant 0.1%. This also means that any other SMGs, LMGs, and assault rifles will have the trained talent replaced with another randomly picked weapon talent. This applies to all of the weapons that have already been looted, as well as ones that will be looted in the future. So that's definitely an important change. Really happy to finally know that the handful of weapons I have that were using a dead talent now finally actually have a talent. That's definitely going to be awesome, especially for those of us running the beautiful Midas SMG, which, by the way, even without that talent, is still a wonderful SMG. Probably still one of the best high-end SMGs in the game, especially if you run it with a 59-round magazine like I do. Really love that thing. So happy I was able to get that to drop. Let's move forward and talk about the Darkzone. Now, before we actually get to that rogue thing, one thing I do want to point out, one of the biggest changes coming to the Darkzone that I'm super stoked about is the ability for players to heal other neutral players by using first aid and support station skills. This is something everyone already tries to do. Everyone has been trying to do it since the days of the alpha. We all want to help out our fellow agents, even when they're not directly in our squad. But you never could. It was just kind of a gesture of goodwill. If you threw down a first aid station or popped a heal, that person knew that you wanted to heal them, but you couldn't. So I'm really happy about this because it's an additional positive player interaction. And there's no reason it shouldn't work this way. I really like the idea of this. It's definitely an unspoken gesture of goodwill when dealing with multiple squads, for example. So, if your squad of 3 is about to roll into an area where another squad of 3 or more has already been dealing with, say, a named enemy, an elite, and you just kind of roll up, they're, maybe taking some heavy damage. What better, way to introduce yourself to the group than to throw down a heal, help them regenerate their health, and then help them finish off that boss, rather than just rolling in, and essentially claiming the loot on a boss that you didn't really do that much work on. I think it's a good way to have some really interesting player interaction. I like the idea of that. Any unspoken player interaction is usually a positive in my eyes. And there's some other small changes going on. If you guys are interested, you really should check out the full patch notes for yourself. I will have a link directly below, so you can click it, head on over, read everything there is, especially regarding the Darkzone. But let's talk about those changes to what's going on with rogue and non-rogue status. So number 1, players killed in the Darkzone will lose less Darkzone funds and experience, whether they are rogue or non-rogue. Darkzone funds and experience rewards for surviving rogue status have been improved. Darkzone funds and experience rewards for killing rogue agents have been improved. So this is where the fine line sits. The way the Darkzone works right now is that going rogue is a very high risk, low reward situation, as it should be. You should not be directly rewarded ever, in my opinion, in large quantities for going rogue. It is a huge risk that you take. And that risk is what makes the Darkzone so special, because there's that constant tension, the constant, questioning of the integrity of the random players around you, those who are not in your fire team. And sometimes those who have joined your fire team. Could they possibly disband and engage you? Who knows? It's that mystery that makes the Darkzone so tense. Those extractions with random players, so tense. If everyone is always pulling the trigger and killing one another, and if there isn't punishment for that sort of activity, that sort of play style, that value, that tension that comes from never knowing will go away because everyone will know. It'll be like DayZ. DayZ and H1Z1 are games where pretty much no one trusts anyone whatsoever. There's no reason to. Everyone's just always killing one another. It's a giant team deathmatch experience, and that would completely ruin what makes the Darkzone special. Now, I agree, the punishment for dying as a rogue agent was really high. But I don't agree with everyone who is saying that no one is ever going to engage in PvP if that's the instance. You know what? The Darkzone isn't meant to be a PvP only area of the map. It's meant to be essentially a high-level endgame PvE zone that has that risk, in it, because players have the ability to engage one another. It's that combination that makes the Darkzone so valuable to me and such a wonderful experience, one that I don't think anyone has been able to capture in the way that Ubisoft and team have. There's been plenty of these open world PvP style experiences like DayZ, but they just don't capture the same sort of tension and intensity that a game like The Division does because of those restrictions on going rogue, on going PvP. It's punished so harshly that it prevents people from doing it all willy-nilly, and I appreciate that. As someone who goes rogue quite often, I am an advocate of rogue status. That's kind of what I've been calling myself recently, is like, I go rogue status, that's me. I am all for the invocation, being the one who pushes for suspicion in my activities to essentially, sometimes initiate a really great PvP story. And sometimes it's just a matter of what I call punishment. Like when, this is a situation. I understand people feel that the Darkzone doesn't have enough PvP. So I feel by going rogue in certain situations and making really great rogue moments, not just for myself and my fire team, but for the fire teams that are involved, is a push to say, no, there is PvP in the Darkzone. It just has to be about the players who are willing to initiate it or willing to make it go down. And I'm not talking about, 4v1ing some poor sap who happened to stumble into your fire team and help you eliminate a boss. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about genuine, squad versus squad firefights. And I've had plenty of them, and I plan on launching a series this week that is going to highlight a lot of those with you guys. Proper Tales from the DZ, highlighting a lot of the awesome PvP firefights that my squad has had. Again, because we're willing to go rogue. We're willing to take that risk to potentially lose 50,000 credits and all of our Darkzone keys in one death for the sake of a really good firefight and the possibility of some good loot off of our fallen enemies. So I like the system as it stands. I like the high risk, low reward, and I want them to keep that intact. So I'm hoping that these changes aren't too drastic, because I do not want to see people going rogue left and right. This does not need to become a traditional PvP arena. This isn't the culling, this isn't H1Z1, this isn't Battle Royale. I do not ever want it to be like that. I want rogue status to be something that happens, but not something that happens consistently. Once going rogue becomes the norm, the Darkzone loses its value, and I think everyone can wrap their head around that. At least I hope you can. It's the mixed bag of PvE and unknown PvP circumstances that makes the DZ so damn good. Ubisoft, please continue to preserve that. I am genuinely concerned about this update, guys, because there is no actual quantity being stated in these patch notes. Like, just how much more experience and funds are you going to receive for surviving rogue? And, how much have you decreased the loss of funds and experience for dying as a rogue? I really am looking forward to knowing. I don't actually want it to be half. I would hope that it's something below half in terms of increased and decreased funds and experience. But we'll see. I'm really looking forward to finding out. And I think, I've been holding off on doing a sort of endgame Darkzone discussion because I had a feeling there was going to be a patch for this. And sure enough, here it is. So plan on seeing that discussion sometime in the coming weeks. But overall, this could potentially be a good thing. This could just maybe slightly increase the amount of rogue agents. Maybe liven up the PvP a little bit, but at the same time, make sure that it does not become the norm. Only time will tell. Now, there's a few other things going on that are very important to mention here. Improved Darkzone chest items quality. Those rank 30 chests that kept dropping blues, which made no sense whatsoever, will now drop superior or purple items. And also keyed chests that are not ranked have a chance to drop high-end gold items. So that should technically even include rank 30 chests, but I guess we'll have to see. Check out the patch notes for yourself, guys. There's a lot more stuff here involving UI, audio. There are fixes specific to each individual platform. A lot of good stuff. Definitely a good sign of Ubisoft and team, everybody at Massive and Annecy and Redstorm, paying attention to the community and making changes where necessary. Let's just hope those changes are the right changes. So that very much wraps up the first two bits and pieces here, the patch notes as well as rewarding rogues discussion that I wanted to have. I want to talk now about the story in The Division. Just briefly, we're not actually going to talk about the ending. There are no spoilers here. But the story has been the most disappointing component of The Division for me. And I want to quote Amy Hennig, of course, the writer of the Uncharted franchise for a very long time. She has a quote that basically states, "In game design, you hire professional artists, professional coders, professional audio designers. Then why the hell would you not hire professional writers?" She doesn't say it exactly like that, but that is her quote essentially. I've made it a little bit more intense because I do genuinely become frustrated when a huge studio and publisher like Ubisoft can't be bothered to hire some professional writers. Just because your game is open world doesn't, somehow make you exempt from actually having good story and good characters. And for a lot of people, games are not just about, one or two, individual components or mechanics. Their games are the sum of their parts, and I am one of those people who is like that. I very much love the core experience of The Division. I love the RPG elements, I love the gunplay, I love the world design, so it sucks that something that is essentially, 50% of the experience, the story and the characters, falls so damn short because it clearly was not written by any freaking professionals. It's not that difficult to hire some real writers to develop some real characters and write a real freaking story. I like the core premise of the story of The Division. I genuinely do. And I think there is a lot of potential within the characters that exist in the game. They just have not been written or fleshed out by real writers. And that is insanely disappointing. And that quote from Amy Hennig has just resonated with me so hardcore since I heard it a couple months ago, because there are so many games that fall into this trap. It's a constant issue. What is so damn hard about hiring some real writers? You have the money, you have the budget, and that means from this point on, Ubisoft, get some real writers. The game has sold incredibly well. It has beaten out Destiny for its first 24 hours of sales. You have the viewer basis, you have the player basis, you have the consumers. We're here, we bought your game, we like it, make it better going forward. Any story-related DLC moving forward needs to be written professionally. It's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable in the base game, and to see this issue continue moving forward would be even more unacceptable. It's genuinely a problem with many big AAA titles, and it needs to go away. As Amy Hennig said, you have professional artists, you have professional coders, professional audio designers. Where are the professional writers? Make it so, Ubisoft. Make it so. And this very much leads us into my last piece, not my last piece, but one of the final points here, which is go big or go home at this point for Ubisoft. There's a lot of things in The Division that I love, no doubt about it, but there's a lot of things that definitely fell short. One of my biggest issues ties in with, like I said, with the character customization and the representation of cosmetic and gear items. I like how they were split, right? I love the idea that we actually have cosmetic items, clothing items separate from our gear items. And I like that both of them do modify our appearance. But I don't like is how lacking that whole experience is. High-end gear, high-end backpacks and knee pads should look high-end. We should have cool bits of engraving and patches on them. Like there's so much potential to push that to the next level to make sure that those high-end pieces of gear feel high-end, because right now they don't. And that's one of the larger problems with the clothing. It's a lot of clothing. There's a lot of scarves and hats and jackets. They're different colors. They're slightly different styles, but there's no true variation within them. I can't have a hood up on my jacket. Why the hell can I not have my hood up? You've got enemies running around from the LMB with like freaking, urban ghillie capes for their sniper rifles. Why do we not have access to any of that? That's the kind of stuff that the player wants to see in an experience like this that is all about developing their character and making them feel like their own. So that's something that has been lacking, and it's something that the game, they need to change moving forward. Like, Ubisoft has to recognize, they have us on board. They've drawn in a massive audience. I mean, this game has sold ridiculously well in its first week. I can't even imagine what the numbers are at now. It's time to take those risks. You don't need to play it safe anymore. The game is done well. Hire the writers. Give us, push the boundaries in terms of the content. Like, stop worrying about basing it so much in realism. That's already out the window. You're making a game for the sake of making a game that is enjoyable. Where is my hockey mask and my gas mask and, you know, my ski goggles and my, you know, just let me do whatever the hell I want with my character, within reason, of course, but there just needs to be more variety there. They need to go bigger with that. It's something I am an advocate of and something I want to see them do pushing forward with all of this DLC. You know, we're already seeing the introduction of gear sets with the incursions. All right, let's make these unique. Don't just give me, you know, a fireman's jacket or a police officer jacket. Like, seriously, take this to the next level. Where's my urban ghillie? You know, where's my cool knee pads and my custom gloves with, like, you know, metal plates on top? Like, take it to the next level, man. Give us cool stuff. Let us make sure that if we're playing the game and we're beating some of the highest difficulty content, that other players can look at our character and say, damn, man, that guy ran that incursion. Look at, he's got that backpack. Oh, look at that. He's got a, you know, axe on the back of it. Like, there's some of that detail there. It just, as I said, it hasn't been taken far enough. And that's something I really want to see them do with future updates. The last thing I want to talk about is a bit of a public service announcement asking you guys to please VoIP. VoIP, of course, is a voice over IP type chat type thing, right? Basically, when you're in the dark zone, it means that there's proximity chat. That's exactly what it means. Proximity chat, which is pretty much the best thing ever. It makes the dark zone so incredibly awesome. It expands the experience tenfold. You can go into the dark zone, you can sit in TeamSpeak or in, you know, you can sit in a party chat on your console or whatever, and I guarantee you the experience will not be as great as it is when you're in proximity chat. You're out in the DZ and you start calling out another squad. You know, you're cracking jokes with them, doing anything to just, you know, egg them on a little bit potentially, or maybe you're actually having a good piece of communication in a firefight. You're fighting alongside of another friendly squad to make sure that you can all extract your goodies. There are, you know, of course, positive and negative interactions that can happen with a proximity-based chat system. But I'm telling you, the moment when you're in the DZ and you're chasing down another group of players, you're rogue or they're rogue, and you're having these callouts, it's going to be some of the best moments you've ever had in the Dark Zone. So please, VoIP guys, please use that voice over IP chat, use that proximity chat, and just benefit. Not enough games make use of proximity chat in their PvP environments, so I was really stoked when The Division you know, sort of cemented that back in the beta as something they were going to do. It's an amazing mechanic, and I just feel it's necessary. I wish it was forced, in fact, in the DZ. It's awesome. It provides a lot of awesome moments and a lot of awesome situations. So please VoIP. That's going to do it, guys. I am very much still into The Division. I'm still spending some time in the Dark Zone a lot recently. Finally was able to do my first challenge mode mission not too long ago. It took us like 2 hours. We were obviously under-geared, I guess would be the best way to put it. Since then, I've acquired quite a bit of substantially awesome gear. I even have a first wave high-end M1A, which I just recently found out was insanely rare. Really happy about that. That thing hits like an absolute bullet train. It is a monster, and it headshots just 168% critical headshot damage percentage increase. 3 headshots in the DZ on other agents, and they just go down. The thing is bonkers. Been having a lot of fun farming the north area of the DZ. And I'm also going to stop using the word farming, because it's not really like that. I don't really go there and just consistently farm. When I think of farming, I think of farming in an actual sense where it's like work. But my squad and I, we play on a much more enjoyable time frame. And I mentioned this to a couple of you guys who are out there talking about trying to get your hands on Caduceus or like the Liberator or the Midas, and you were saying how you were farming for 3 hours straight. It just, trust me, as much as you may think you want that weapon, it will not feel as good to actually get your hands on it if you had to spend 6 or 7 hours farming the same boss over and over. Take the time, pace yourself, run the dailies once a day, visit the Dark Zone, have fun, man. Just play the game. Get involved in some great firefights with your friends in the DZ, and just let those weapon drops come naturally. Not to mention, with the new patch, they're going to happen more frequently, so there's really no reason to grind. Play the game for fun. Remove the grinding and farming. I hate how those words have become so attached to experiences like Destiny and The Division. They only exist dependent on how you play the game, so don't play the game like it's some massive time sink MMO. Play it like it's a third-person RPG shooter that just wants you to have fun in its giant open world. Anything from me, guys, regarding your thoughts on rewarding rogues, the patch notes, professional writers, anything we talked about in this week's issue, throw it down in the comment section below. Please send those in-game photos my way. I would love to start featuring them on the show, and I will see you in the next one.